Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Nisha. I am one of the marketing reps here at AIM. Today's webinar will be recorded and later posted on our website. This does mean that all attendees will be automatically muted so that we can get a quality recording this morning. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box and we will try to answer them throughout the presentation. But if we are unable to get to the question, we will have a member of our marketing team reach out to you individually to make sure we get those answered. We do have a webinar now every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, so please keep an eye out on your emails, or you can check out our website to get signed up for the next one, which will be hosted by yours truly next Tuesday, August 13th. I will be talking about maximizing profits, the power of customer growth and retention. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Anderson, our lead internal wholesaler, so we can get started this morning. With that, take it away, Mike.
All right, I'll take it. Good morning, everybody. I think most of you know who I am. I've been here for my 19th year here. AIM is, the best way to think of us is we are your business partner with regard to Medicare Sup, Medicare Advantage, all the things that come with that. In that position, we felt like it was important to spend some time talking about the things we're going to cover today because we feel like they're really, really different than things that have happened here with AEP along the way. Taking a look at the agenda, and we do know it's a busy time. AEP is just around the corner a little bit, but we feel like the information that you're going to get here is going to be information that's really going to be helpful for you. As we get closer to October, you're going to hear about and you're going to read about a lot of things, words like disruption, downstreaming, those two things, and other really important things that stretch over and across a lot of different things like the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are going to have an impact. Some of that's going to be positive, some of it's going to be negative on what you can do and what you do. And as we go along, you think about words like disruption, downstreaming. A lot of folks are like, okay, what does that mean? You know, how do I factor that in there? As we go along, one of the most important things in all of this is a chance for you individually to increase what we call your value proposition score. So what is that big phrase? What's that all about? Well, it's how your clients measure their relationship with you. What value do you bring to the table? Not that everybody on this call isn't doing a great job, but we feel like there's a lot to be gained here, especially this year, by starting your preparations in this particular area now. All right. So why is that important? Well, as Nisha just mentioned a minute ago, she's got a webinar coming up next week, and a lot of things that pertain to this value proposition situation are going to be covered in that. And I don't want to do anything to steal her thunder, but it's important to remember as you go along all the time, it's easier to grow your business by taking care of the existing clients and expanding that way than it is to spend money on prospects that you feel like you can turn into clients. And again, Nisha's going to have more on that during next week's webinar. Okay, so where did disruption and downstreaming fit in? And the answer to that question takes us all the way back to 2020. The year of COVID caused a lot of heartburn for agents, but for carriers, at least initially, it looked like it was going to be a boom time. The usual 10,000 prospects a day were lining up at the metaphorical age-in door. They were turning 65. They were getting ready to take a look at what Medicare meant for them, but mask mandates and sheltering in place very shortly meant that diagnostic work and elective procedures for current clients were shelved. And that ended up holding true for a much longer period of time. I've seen several things from carriers talking about this particular thing. It meant initially in short term that the claims numbers and the loss ratio numbers were as good as anything anybody had ever seen. And that continued for a long period of time. Remember mask mandates and stuff not getting into politics, but mask mandates were in place for a long period of time. This pushed around through 21 into 22, and those great loss ratio numbers continued, but sooner or later, they knew that that was going to change, and it ended up that became a 2023 pain point. Okay, and there's more to it than might look like, particularly when you talk about elective procedures. Beneficiaries that were holding off on diagnostic work eventually had that work done, and many of them found out that they had serious medical issues that had to be addressed. Those serious medical issues that involve more treatment, they involve more diagnostic work and scans and things like this, that compounded the claims mess to be certain. And by the time the carriers could really get a handle on how bad it was, the costs of all of that had far outstripped the premiums. You add this overview mix or overview situation into what, let's just call it the typically unusual situation in Washington and the standard birthday rule chaos in Oregon, California, Idaho, and other states. And you had a situation where the stage was set for, we call it the Great Migration. AEP, no disrespect to anybody, but it's this constant movement around. Okay, but it set the stage for the Great Migration to encompass a much more beneficial kind of movement. Okay, you'd step back and look at it a little bit more, you would say that it's a target-rich environment, and that target-rich environment factors in a lot of different things that you don't think about initially. Medicare Advantage had grown quickly, dynamically, to where it was essentially half of the market. It had gone from 19% to 55% of the market in 3 years. So there were questions about whether that would stay static, because those carriers had to evaluate that claim situation, and they had to evaluate the cost of all the goodies that they had added into the mix that were making them very enticing and very appealing to the beneficiaries that they were out there. Okay, so it sets a stage for all this different kind of stuff. And as you look at this opportunity, you assess this opportunity, questions are out there that nobody really knows about right now. They know that they're anticipating a lot of looky-loos and a lot of different movement possibilities, but there's questions about whether traditional share and advantage share, which are close enough to 50-50 to call it even, whether they're going to stay even. Medicare supplement costs are expected to soar, and that means that you're going to have clients who are paying more and more and more money for that small share of coverage that comes with the Medicare stuff. To give you something to think about, if you're not in Washington State, the ones of you that are, you know this, but the ones who aren't, you don't probably know this, but the cost of a Plan G Med Sup in Washington for a couple with community rating, you're looking at right at about $4,800 a year for a married couple to both have Medicare Sup. That's a boatload of money, no question about that. PDP, a lot of things, and we're going to talk about some of that specifically here next. A lot of things that involve the PDP market are changing, and we think that there's a possibility that's going to be a bigger opportunity than you think it is. Okay, so part of what I talked about before is the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, and the Inflation Reduction Act is now going to kick into gear, and you're going to have things that you've never had before, like caps on out-of-pocket costs. It was designed to benefit vulnerable populations, and it was part of a bigger piece of legislation. But what it did is created emphasis on more and better benefits and stabilizing the prescription drug plans. Okay, but for the first time now, there is a standard PDP benefit design, and I know that people are going to want to ask, or they're going to ask about what that is. It involves multiple phases. All right, 3 particularly. You've got an annual deductible, you've got initial coverage, and you've got catastrophic coverage, and they're all set forth in these changes that came into place. all right? And it's structured in such a way that drug manufacturers are going to be facing higher costs. That means the PDP carriers are going to be facing higher costs, and it's possible that clients are going to see a reduction in what they're paying, and they may see a reduction in some of the benefits that they've got. But it was designed to click this along here so you can take more of a look at the specifics here. But it was designed to help people, and we're not passing any judgment on that. One of the things that a lot of people are very aware of is the idea that insulin costs are capped at 35 bucks. The donut hole is finally gone. That standard design thing that I talked about before kicks in, and there's some very specific low-income subsidy pieces that have been expanded. And what this is going to mean for your particular clients will largely be dictated when they get their notification with regard to renewal. We do know that carriers are bailing out of this. They want to get out of it because they're not comfortable with where it's going. And again, other things, I'm not a big slide reader, so I'm letting you all read this as we're going along. Okay, but all these different things here that we're talking about are all part of this and a piece of this. And so you look at this and you get biosimilars and things like that in there. So why did this happen? Well, I picked this up off of a Kaiser Family Foundation piece, and it really kind of gives you an understanding of why they had to make some moves to try to help these Medicare beneficiaries out, plain and simple, okay? And this is, if you look at the number there, that the fact that 5 million people that were enrolled in Part D plans, which means that they didn't have it through a Medicare Advantage plan, they had it as a standalone, all right? They had paid out-of-pocket costs of $2,000 or more at least one time in a 10-year period of time, all right? And most of them had even higher numbers than that they were having to deal with. So creates problems for certain. Okay, another thing that's coming along here is what they call this one-on-one consent. Okay, and one-on-one consent is going to have a lot of impact in the Medicare Advantage space, and it's designed to stop the selling and reselling of leads that put Medicare beneficiaries, specifically those on the MAPD side, into a position where they're constantly getting cold called. And those individuals didn't realize that by making a call or responding to a call or clicking on a web link, they were agreeing and giving consent to their data being harvested and sold over and over and over. So starting on October 1st of this year, CMS is now going to require one-to-one consent for that. And that's one of many big things that's happening here that create issues with this. Also, the election year effect. And when I read this, I first kind of shook my head and I thought, you know what? This makes sense. In election years, the mail slows down. Access to resources, digital resources, media resources, those things all change, okay? And that means that it's more difficult in smaller markets to get media spots if you want to access media spots. But the big thing for the folks that are on this call right now is these digital marketing clicks. They're costing more money. And when they cost more money, your cost basis to try to grow your business keeps going up. And that circles us back around to what Nisha very skillfully plugged for herself at the very beginning, which is how can you grow your business without having to spend more money? Again, more on that next week. But you really can just boil it down that stuff costs more. That's a real scientific word for you there, stuff. Stuff costs more, and it takes longer to get access to in election years, and that has begun to really ramp up here over the course of the summer. All right, so one of the things that, and it seems almost counterintuitive initially, but one of the things that people are contemplating is this idea of adding Medicare Advantage to their portfolio. And you can see some of the statistic things that I mentioned before. And again, I'm not a great fan of reading slides, so I'm going to let you read that and let you think about it. All right, but with these things changing as dynamically as they are, more and more people have access to these plans, and more of them, for cost reasons, are considering these plans. And as you can see down here, the researchers expect that as much as 4 times the number of people will be shopping their plans as have been previously. So the belief is that more agents are going to consider Medicare Advantage than have in the past. And the reason for considering that rather than staying with what they're doing is just opportunity. And we talk all the time and continue to talk about opportunities and taking advantage of these opportunities. Okay, that option is more considered to be more mainstream now than ever, setting aside personal belief about A, B, C, D. A really important thing to consider with regard to either one of these, and I'm not taking a position pointing you towards SUP or pointing you towards Advantage, but there's all kinds of hue and cry about a lot of different things. But at the core, when you are in Medicare, whether it's the AB side or the C side, the federal government is either your primary insurance provider or they are funding your primary insurance provider. Okay, and it's just a matter of whether you're getting a significant subsidy or a little bit of a subsidy. Okay, so the expectation here is that the tire kickers, there's going to be more of them than ever. A lot of that is going to be due to the changes in the standalone PDP space. So, all right, so all this chaos creates opportunity. I've said that before. We're going to say it again, and that's a place where you can shine. But the key piece of all of this is preparation, informing your clients of what these upcoming changes are going to be, making sure they understand that the Inflation Reduction Act can actually benefit them. They may have to change because their carrier has gotten out of the market, okay? But it still potentially presents them with an opportunity. Rate increases are coming on the Medicare SUP side. The average rate increase I read somewhere, it's expected to be about 12%. Now keep in mind, average is spread across a lot of states and a lot of carriers that you don't work with. So don't panic, because it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be negatively impactful for you. It can, in fact, be positively impactful for you. One of the key things, if you're going to change or you're going to add carriers into your mix, make your contracting decisions now and move forward with that process now. And the reason that I say that is because that is a part of a funnel that nobody really thinks about. But as we get closer to AEP, when agents are really tuning in, when they should be tuning in now, frankly, as we get a little bit closer, that's going to create a logjam at the bottom of that licensing funnel with everybody trying to get a contract with the Bank of Bob and Ray Insurance Company or whatever it is that they think is going to be the right place to go. You want to make sure that you're staying on top of compliance. You want to make sure that you're paying attention when the ANOC notices, annual notice of change, goes out. Clients should be receiving those next month. Be prepared for the language there to be impactful. Be prepared to answer questions that they're going to have for you about that. And maybe more than anything else, make sure that they understand that you are there and you are there to help them right now. Outbound changes in MAPD are going to be significant. Might be a good time to take some time and teach them how to enroll in Part D for themselves, just to make sure that they're fully engaged in that process. Okay. Preparation, retention. I talked before about the idea that growing the business is a lot less expensive when you retain existing clients and you work with them to make sure they are better and more thoroughly taken care of. If you increase your retention by 5%, particularly in a dynamic market like this where there's the possibility of a lot of movement, if you increase that by 5%, your profits are going to soar. Mentioned before about updating client profiles now. All right, make sure and go through, make sure that you've prepared talking notes so that when you're having client review conversations, you're asking them how they feel about that plan, whether there's anything that has changed with regard to health that could impact the possibility of changing coverage, making sure that they feel comfortable that they are in the right plan for them. You want to have yourself positioned to where you can, and you have time to make phone calls, so that if you're sending out a plan review letter, which is kind of a generic term that everybody uses their own version of, but you send out that plan review letter, and if you don't hear back, you've got to reach out to those folks, and you got to reach out to them so that you get time to have that conversation with them as you go forward, and give some thought to what you can do with an extra 10 minutes, because there are a lot of things out there that we are finding out are being considered impactful by your clients, by these Medicare beneficiaries, that haven't come up before. For several years, we were hearing about dental. Well, now extended care is a thing, because your 67-year-old Medicare subclients have had an uncle or a family member have to deal with extended care, and now they realize that not only has their health changed, but they are also staring that particular situation right square in the eye, and that's not necessarily a great deal. I talked about the idea of teaching your clients how to enroll in Part D. Okay, you still get paid, but what it allows them to do is make their own decisions, and there are websites out there that allow them to go through this process, and a lot of them are a lot more comfortable with technology than we necessarily give them credit for. But when you are doing that and engaging them in that way, they really feel like they have ownership, and they understand why it was that they made the particular move that they made. And as you're going in, and we're now in August, if you're going to start lining things up as far as, a checklist, if you want to call it that, get that book of business organized. Make sure that you've got current mailing address, current email address for all these clients and any prospects that you're working with. And you might be a good time to think about engaging differently with these people than what it is that you've done before. Technology is a huge part of what's out there now. Embracing that will benefit you. It'll benefit them. Okay. And regardless of which way you go, all right, these are just some basic things that you can do. And this number 2 bullet, I think this might be the single most important thing to think about. Assess and solve for new needs. Okay. We tend to think more broadly about it and in bigger terms, when it sometimes can be just as simple as a few minutes to assess the change in the circumstances for, and I always talk about Bob and Carol Davis. They are our prospective clients, or they are our current clients, but working with them and sitting down with them to assess the changes, look at their ANOC statement and make sure that they're current with it and they understand the particular impact. And that some of that requires taking some time now to be current on the profile that you've got with them. All right. And again, I said before, make sure that you're getting the maximum out of the role that technology can play. Okay. Medicare Center, which is a creation of Integrity Marketing Group. That is our parent company. I don't think there's a 2-week period of time that goes by where we don't see new and interesting and cool opportunities that are coming about as a result of Integrity's commitment to technology. And Medicare Central is an everything in one place opportunity for you, having your contracting with AIM. We are an integrity marketing company, and you do have to have your contracts with us to access this. The system won't work unless they can check off the fact that they've got you contracted through an integrity partner. But this can be a huge help from a lot of different perspectives. And if you're scrambling, or if you're not particularly happy with your CRM system, this is your CRM, and they've got lead availability, which is becoming something that people really wrestle with more out of season than in season. But lead availability is there. You've got the availability to enroll in MAPDs out of here and all kinds of different things, but making sure that you're comfortable with the role that technology can play, and making sure that you are positioning your clients to be comfortable with this. This could be significant. As I mentioned before, got a webinar next week that's going to look at retention versus acquisition, and you've heard me talk about that in on a number of the different slides here and throughout this presentation. But growing your book of business with existing clients is a more effective way. You saw the slide a couple ago that talked about a 5% increase in your retention can cause your profitability to soar. Okay, it's not complicated, but everybody's business model, it's different. Assess and solve is going to be the key, I think, for a lot of people, and the technology that's available out there, whether it be Medicare Center or elsewhere, it's growing exponentially. And as far as our contribution to this, remember, the team here at AIM, the marketing team here, we're here for you. We've got options, we've got ideas, we've got suggestions and guidance. We can help you, and we can help you help your clients. That's, when you get away from all the fancy terminology and downstreaming and disruption and all these different kinds of things, this whole thing boils down to and is about helping more people. And that's why we're doing this. All right, that's the end of what I got. You guys know the number. If you got questions, give us a call. The marketing team will be reaching out to everybody that's on the call here today to answer questions, help strategize any of these different things. And now is the time to get rolling. If nothing else, sit down and think about how you've approached this situation and this timeline in the past, and make some determinations as to whether you want to continue going in that direction or whether you want to expand and do things differently. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody and take questions. As always, we do ask that you mute yourself if you don't intend to ask a question, so that we can get the question from another one of the folks that's on here, be able to hear it and be able to hear the answer. Okay, and a quick reminder, we do have that webinar up next week. It'll also be on Tuesday. It'll also be at 9 a.m. You'll be getting some calls and seeing electronic invitations and things like that coming up relatively soon in the big picture. So, all right, we're going to unmute. All right. So you do have the ability to mute yourselves, but I do want to give you the opportunity to answer questions or ask questions and get those answered as we go along. So, anybody with questions? Okay.
Hey, Mike, it's George Francisco. You talked
George,
about,
good morning.
how are you? You talked about teaching your client to self-enroll in PDP. Are you going to do some extensive training on that so that we handle that in the proper way?
Well, we can make extensive training on that available. I don't know that we're necessarily, because we do have some time constraints here, but if there are enough folks, and you can all reach out to me individually, we can do it one-on-one, or we can put something together on a broader basis. But what I don't want to do is put something together and then have 4 people attend. So as we're making the follow-up calls, if that is something that you feel like you want to have more specific training about, let your marketer know. They'll get back in touch with us on the team. We can make some decisions, and maybe we'll put what I'd call an off-cycle webinar together specifically for that. It's a great question, George, and I appreciate you thinking about not just you, but everybody, and giving them that opportunity.
Yes, because granted, those individuals are the ones that are currently in supplement. And so, a lot of the questions on our mind now is that how many of those are on such a limited income that we should really talk to them about going over to an Advantage plan.
That too. I think Advantage was being driven by the Zuzus and Wham Whams and fancy tchotchkes and such that were being made available with $5,000 dental benefits and golf clubs and pickleball club memberships and health club memberships and such. I think with the shifting that they're talking about, these are their numbers, not mine, the 13% average rate increase on Medicare supplement premiums. I think you could very well see that teeter-totter, which is kind of balanced in the middle, right at about 50-50. I think you could see that go towards Medicare Advantage just because of affordability. And the other thing, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, don't hesitate to look at Plan N as a way to deal with price disparity and as a way to incorporate your clients' concern about saving premium and a concern about not wanting to get into the Advantage space. We're talking potentially $500 and $600 and $700 a year savings for folks simply by going from G to N.
That's
All right.
good.
Any
Thank
other,
you.
Yep. All righty. Anybody with other questions?
I had a question. Do you have any estimate of how much the PDPs are going to increase in rate? And then also, are they going to decrease commissions, which have never been that big, but is that going to be affected as well?
We haven't seen detailed information on that yet, so we don't know. And I think they're still scrambling to try to get everything put in place. I can tell you because, and this was one of the bullet points that I didn't really talk about on one of the earlier slides, the carrier's job number one is to be profitable. And that tells me, without any sort of training as a tarot card or a tea leaf reader, nothing's off the table. They're going to do what they have to do to be profitable. They're going to do what they have to do to stay in the ballgame. Okay. So I had a question about what month ACE supplements renew, and I think the translation on that is has ACE announced its premium adjustments for the 2025 cycle yet. I'll get that information and get it back to you because I don't have it right here at my fingertips.
I had one more question. With that Medicare payment plan, I believe it's called, I haven't seen any details of how that's going to get implemented. Have you received anything?
You're talking about on the key to the IRA and the ability to, what it is they're going to allow them to spread those payments out over, and I'm looking through my notes here, they're going to allow them to spread those payments out over 12 months. I will look to find out what the specifics are on it because there wasn't anything detailed on that yet, other than they would have the ability to spread that out over the full year rather than lump summing it, in the second quarter.
Right. I'm wondering how are they going to get billed, and I could just kind of foresee some chaos getting that set up.
Yep. Disruption. Disruption. All right. Other questions? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We'll get, let me see here. Apparently, Glenn's got a question, but I'm not seeing anything from him. Got his hand up. Glenn, have you got something out there that you want to cover? Oh, it says that you're muted by an organizer. Let me see if I can get you unmuted. All right, you're unmuted, Glenn Martin. Go ahead. I can hear you now.
Okay. Now, I've been on SUP myself for a while. Originally, I set that up because in case there was any medical changes, I wouldn't have to requalify. So I've been using Part D and never been on Advantage. This is mainly going to be something that is of concern to probably people who have higher issues with a number of meds or tier 3, tier 4 kind of stuff, probably.
Well, it's going to be individual because the concern isn't just going to be the drug plans. For a lot of them, the drug plans mean that they've got health issues as well. They're not taking, they're taking 5 or 6 medications. They're doing that to deal with a specific thing. And it comes down to whether the coverage that they've got is still sufficient to be able to handle that. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of a shot yet in terms of what's going to happen within the PDP market that's staying intact. We do know that some carriers are getting out. We anticipate there are going to be some more that are getting out, but we don't have everything dialed in just yet. I expect September 1st is going to be when the bell rings on a lot of that.
Okay. What is likely to be the effect, or does there even need to be a concern on the part of clients, for example, that you've got in a G or a high deductible G supplement plan who are already buying the cheapest Part D plan that they can because they're not on a lot of prescriptions? Is this something they don't have to worry about until somewhere down the road if they do have those issues?
Well, it may involve them having to move from carrier X to carrier Z because carrier X raises rates ridiculously, even though they don't have much in the way of medications. It's something you're going to have to eyeball just to keep their pricing basis for their cost basis in line. And that's part of, you know, I talked about the prep stuff. That's the kind of thing you want to prep on and make sure that your folder says something about Bob and Carol and where they're at. And when you find out that that MAPD or their PDP plan is going to go up XXX amount or whatever, you know that you got to get something for them that's going to be a better deal, because you know also that they're not taking a ton of medication. Every situation is going to be individual. It's just going to require a lot more monitoring than we probably have lulled ourselves into thinking about.
Okay, well that circles back to kind of what you were saying about help them research that stuff online too.
There you go.
So
exactly.
Okay. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else with a question out there? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're at about 35 minutes or so after the hour. Again, we do appreciate everybody making time available. We really felt like there was so much going on, and we were hearing it from so many different directions, that this was the kind of thing we wanted to get out to our folks as quickly as possible and as thoroughly. And I'll be the first to stipulate that we couldn't cover every single detail. You're going to want to do some research on your own, because it's going to pertain to carriers that are specific to your area that you're doing things with, and knowing where it is that they go. As we get notifications, we get them out. Okay. But we want to make sure that we're positioning you to stay in front as much as we can. So we're going to wrap this thing up. We will be in touch. The back office folks will be taking care of getting this process, getting it loaded up onto the website and such, so you will have it as a resource to circle back and take a look at again. And with that, we're going to go ahead and shut her down. Thanks everybody for your time. Have a great rest of the week, and let us know what we can do to help you. Take care now.